Hello, and welcome to the Boring History for Sleep. Tonight, we take a warm, meandering stroll through the stone corridors of a medieval monastery to uncover a question few have asked and fewer have answered. What exactly did monks eat for dessert? Settle in, loosen your shoulders, let your breath fall into a slow, relaxed rhythm. Because we're going to take our time. No rush here. There are plums to poach, honey to drizzle, and cheese to curdle. Let's begin in the abbey kitchen, just before dawn. The stone walls are cool. The fire has just been stoked in the corner hearth, and smoke curls gently toward the chimney. A sleepy novice, Brother Milo, rubs his eyes and dusts flour across a wooden prep table. The kitchen smells faintly of ashes, leeks, and yesterday's broth. But today is no ordinary day. Today is a feast day. That means there will be dessert. A word not often whispered in monastic halls, but secretly, quietly, it's there. Let's pause. To understand dessert in a monastery, we must understand the rule of Saint Benedict. Written in the 6th century, it governed nearly every detail of monastic life, from when monks prayed to how they slept to what they ate. Moderation was everything. Fasting was frequent, and gluttony, a sin of the stomach and soul. But even Saint Benedict made room for celebration. Feast days, especially those honoring saints or holy events, allowed for more generous fare. And yes, on those sacred days, sweet things sometimes slipped onto the table. There were a lot of feast days. Some historians estimate nearly 150 across the year in certain orders. Of course, not all of them warranted dessert. Some were quiet observances with extra soup. Others, like Easter, the Feast of St. Martin, or Christmas, invited a more festive menu. And so, a monk might find himself, after weeks of simple porridge and boiled greens, presented with a bowl of sweet fig mash or an herbed cheese tart. But let's be clear. Sugar, as we know it, didn't arrive in Europe until much later. In the medieval monastery, sweet meant something else. Honey was prized. Thick, wild, golden honey. Apples were boiled to concentrate their sweetness. Dates and raisins were imported at great cost. Even carrots, when stewed long enough, could pass for a humble treat. The sweetness was subtle, like the final note of a hymn echoing in the chapel rafters. One favorite? Fig pudding with almond milk. Not the almond milk of supermarket shelves, but a rustic mixture of crushed almonds and warm water, squeezed through cloth. The pudding was marchpane, the ancestor of modern marzipan. Made from ground almonds and honey, it was sculpted into tiny religious scenes or floral shapes. Occasionally, on high feast days, a local bishop might be gifted a piece shaped like a cathedral. One legend even tells of a novice who carved a tiny St. Nicholas holding a candied pear. Marchpane was both a food and a craft, a sweet prayer in edible form. In some abbeys, dessert meant cheese. Soft, fresh, slightly tangy cheese, eaten with slices of poached pear or a drizzle of honey. Simple, honest, utterly medieval. Now and then, exotic ingredients slipped in: cloves, cinnamon, even grains of paradise. How did a monastery acquire these? Trade, barter, and occasionally a well-placed gift from a noble patron who hoped to earn favor or forgiveness. In one record from a Cluniac abbey, the cook was instructed to use only 2 pinches of cinnamon for fear of immoderate joy. Now, let's talk about yolks. Eggs were allowed, sometimes. Whites for fasting days, yolks for feasts. But some enterprising monks began sneaking extra yolks into custards. Yellow was the color of celebration, after all. Eventually, certain abbots banned golden pastries altogether. to maintain humility. But rumor has it, in the quieter corners of the kitchen, custards remained golden. Sometimes fruit was preserved in wine, plums mostly, occasionally pears or cherries. Now, monks had vows of temperance, but no rule forbade you from cooking with wine. So, drunken fruit was eaten reverently, in moderation, by candlelight. On the feast day of a monastery's patron saint, things got creative. Pastries shaped like symbols, doves, staffs, even tiny monks. Butter-rich dough, sometimes dyed with herbs or beetroot. One bakery record simply reads, 35 holy pies, all consumed. Thanks be to God. In every abbey, there were kitchen boys, novices who scrubbed pots, stoked fires, and snuck bites. They traded stories over mixing bowls. Whose tart crust was too tough? Which brother always took the biggest slice? Who once dropped a pear tart right onto the floor? Of course, it was cleaned up and served anyway. Waste not. Even sermons included dessert. A gelatin wobble became a metaphor for spiritual uncertainty. Honey symbolized divine wisdom, sticky but nourishing. One monk wrote, "The soul, like the custard, must be stirred, lest it scorch." But time passed. Monasteries were dissolved, feasting rules were tightened, sugar became common, and the sacred lost its sweetness. Dessert became dessert. No longer wrapped in silence, no longer shaped like saints. But tonight, as the stars rise over stone cloisters and bells ring softly for Compline prayers, imagine a monk sitting quietly by the hearth, cradling a bowl of fig and almond pudding.